Hello and welcome to another edition of Diplomatic Channel. I am Amarachi Ubani. The stories related to the thousands who crossed from Morocco into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta is still unfolding. Scores of people lost their lives making the swim on the Mediterranean Sea. And even when they reach Ceuta, they're still far from the dream painted before they embarked on the journey. It is sad to say that despite this, many more are still embarking on the weary, unsafe, and dangerous journey trying to get to Europe.
More migrants have made their way to Ceuta, the Spanish enclave connecting Europe and Africa. There's no prepared accommodation for them and no warm welcome, just the stark reality that they're off to a rough start, whether they remain in Europe or are sent back to their countries of origin. While there's no prepared accommodation for them, scores of migrants have been sleeping outside wherever they find shade. Some of those who arrived Ceuta fled their countries and walked for months to reach Morocco.
I started working from Niger to Algeria and I enter Morocco. That is where I'm found myself in here, Ceuta. And I'm here, Ceuta, I work in here. We live in here, we sleep here, we eat once a day. And now we need to go to the Europe. I need to work in Spain. I need to become good person in Spain because my own country, northern Nigeria, we have a problem of tourism, we have problem of bandits, we have problem of kidnappers, and we have problem of insecurity in the northern Nigeria. Anytime the bandits, they kill people in the northern Nigeria, they kill people in the school, they kill people in the mosque, they kill people in the church. That is why I'm leaving Nigeria, I'm leaving the northern Nigeria, I'm coming here to be survived.
Children are not left out of the hardship the migrants are experiencing in Ceuta. Under Spanish law, unaccompanied minors are placed in the care of child protection services while their cases are assessed rather than being immediately returned across the border. One young migrant said he had spent 3 of his 7 days in Ceuta sleeping in the forest without food or water. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has described the mass crossing as a violation of Spain's territorial integrity. He said Madrid is working with Morocco to speed up repatriations and restore control of the border. Amidst the situation in Ceuta, a local family has turned its home into an informal refuge, providing food, showers, and clothing to new arrivals. Sabah Mohammed and her family have been preparing large meals, packing them into containers, and organizing supplies before distributing them to long queues of migrants outside their home. She says she does it for the humanity. Among the more than 70 people who lost their lives trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea was Moroccan footballer Faten Al-Aziz's search for a better life ended in tragedy when she drowned while attempting to swim from Nidek to Ceuta. Her mother, Jamila Aflon, said she tried to stop Faten from leaving, but her daughter believed she had no prospects left in Morocco. Aflon said Faten had also been told she could obtain a football-related visa through a club president, although she did not know the details of the opportunity or which organization her daughter might join. The Moroccan Professional Footballers Association mourned Faten's death, expressing deep sorrow over her loss.
The Spanish government has approved 25 million euros in emergency welfare and housing funds for Ceuta, while humanitarian and local aid groups are on the ground distributing emergency food, water, and basic medical care. Spain said 70,000 of the 72,000 people who entered Ceuta from Morocco in a sudden rush nearly 2 weeks ago have returned. But there are roughly 2,500 people left behind, including minors who are right now suffering limited access to food, water, shelter, and sanitation. Joining me now is Executive Director, Lighter Foundation, a charity organization with international remit in the UK. Olasubomi Aina is a member of the Order of the British Empire and Minister of Youth for the State of African Diaspora. Olasubomi, thank you for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
Oh, thank you too for inviting me. My
So,
pleasure.
when thousands of people are willing to risk their lives to reach Ceuta, the enclave, the Spanish enclave, what does that tell us about the conditions that they're leaving behind and how desperate has migration become for many people?
Oh, Amara, I must tell you that uh, from the top of my head, I can just go ahead to tell you that our young people are desperate. Out of desperation, they take these risky decisions to just want to leave their countries for so-called better life. So this crossing from wherever to the European soil, just it's obvious that these young people are quite very desperate. And I must tell you, it's not just desperation in isolation. This is like a state of mind that was born out of lack. A lot of the young people that we come across would, I'm talking about irregular migrants. And a lot of them would tell you that there are no opportunities for them in their own country. So what else do you expect? They are desperate to change states. So a lot of this crossing are born out of desperation, and it's so sad. We are doing our best, and we will continue to do our best. But I must tell you that there is more to this issue of the border problems faced by the European countries, and even African countries are not left behind. So,
I know that as a humanitarian yourself, it's pretty, heart wrenching for you watching people try to make that swim from Africa, to Europe. They enter into these boats that just take them to the middle of the ocean, to the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and then they're left to be found by coast guards. But Ceuta, being a Spanish territory on the North African coast, makes it one of the most visible pressure points in Europe's migration. So, why does this particular border continue to attract such large numbers of migrants?
yeah, I would associate this with the geography. The geography of Ceuta tells the whole story. And of course, there are a lot of history behind Ceuta itself. It's a region geographically in Africa and yet an European state. You get what I mean? So that is a point of attraction for young people who are coming from Africa. Young people see Ceuta and a place like Melilla. Melilla has similarities with Ceuta in terms of geographical location. So a lot of these young people see it as, oh, this is just the easiest path to our dream of getting into the European states. So what do they do next? They plan ahead and see how they can just cross over easily through places like Melilla, places like Ceuta, into the European states. So it's just unfortunate. A lot of them are losing their lives on daily basis. I'm talking statistics now on daily basis. I met with Elena Maleno in 2022, and she has an organization where they try to rescue these young people that are on the sea. Maybe we try to contact her organization for rescue when there's a need to rescue them in the inflatable boats and all other means that they use to cross over. So Elena was telling me that, look, this is a serious matter. For example, if 1,000 young people leave the shores of Africa to cross and to cross the Mediterranean Sea into the European states, that maybe at the end of the day, 500, 600 would eventually arrive in, within the European states, different countries, Italy, Spain, Catalonia, different places. So, but the remaining figures, 400, 600, irrespective, you find that these ones die, and they are usually underreported and underrepresented. Because a lot of the times when these boat sinks, there are no witnesses to tell the story. So you're unable to even figure out how many died, when they died, how they died, all the information that are necessary, you would not be able to get it because there's nobody standing as a witness because everybody perished. So it is an unfortunate situation that keeps occurring day after day. I have heard too many stories that I don't even understand how we can bring this to an end very soon. It has to be a long-term plan to be able to achieve at least something meaningful.
Yeah, I know I can back you up, on the figures of the number of dead, because I think Spain reported there were at least over 90 people died at sea. The Moroccan government tried to downplay that and said they were in their 30s. We're talking about, the desperation of these young people to cross to, Europe, and Ceuta being the only connection they seem to have crossing making that crossing. But does it justify the fact that economies are poor in Africa? There are not enough resources to go around. People are looking for the kind of jobs that they want to be able to live the kind of lives that they have. Does that justify the crossings?
Hmm. To be honest with you, it's a very complex situation. When you talk about irregular migration, it is indeed complex because the reasons why these young people cross is not just one. There are several reasons backing different groups of young people, and and some of which are the economic pressure. Some are um, unexplained employment that the so-called agents in Africa and outside Africa try to lure them into unnecessary um, troubles by telling them that there are employment in the EU countries so they can apply. And some of these young people truly want to apply legally, but they will suddenly find themselves in the middle of a situation where they are being asked to be transported in an inflatable boat, and at that point they are unable to turn back or decide that they do not want to go. I have heard all manner of stories. I've heard of young people who got to a place where they each one of them had to contribute um, their money. They had to contribute towards the transportation to the European country that they needed to be transported to. And unfortunately, on the day they were going to be conveyed from that country, I don't want to mention the names of the country, but there are a lot of stories that these young people have told us because we have spoken to different kinds of young people in different states. And then they would say that on the day they are about to be relocated to the European country, they suddenly would find inflatable boats, and somebody is asking you to be pressing something. You that have not even crossed your village boat before, your village stream in a boat. You are now being asked to be the one control this the sailor of an inflatable boat, asking you to press a button. And you're not cut out for that. And people and these young people are wondering, but you said that there is job here. There are all manner of situations that brings these young people to this the situation where they find themselves. Some of them, they are running away from conflict zones. Some of them, it is as a result of climatic condition of where they are fleeing from. So some have very good reason for fleeing where they are coming from, and some out of desperation. But at the end of the day, they all get to a point where the decision now has to be taken by somebody else. They can no longer be in charge to take the decisions, and this is the point of no return.
Olasubomi Aina has been quite emotional in this interview because it concerns young people taking a life risk by trying to cross the Mediterranean. When we come back from the break, she shows the only way to end the migration crisis should include some tough love. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you've missed quite a bit of my conversation with Executive Director of Light Up Foundation in the UK, Olasubomi Aina. You can always catch up by watching it online. For now, let's head back for the concluding part of my interview with Mrs. Aina as she eventually reveals one solution to the migrant problem that may not be quite popular. I'm wondering, we hear these stories almost on a daily basis. I mean, you have testimonials of people who have tried to make the crossing, via the Mediterranean Sea. They tell you how they get to the Sahara Desert, and they're asked to, they enter into these vehicles that stop halfway or probably stop right in the middle of the desert, and then, they have to wait to be rescued before, they are being taken probably to some other third country, third host country or whatever, and then, they're held there, in detention camps for months on end before anything else is done to them. So I'm wondering why, when people hear these stories, they don't think that could happen to me if I go through these channels. But I'm also thinking that, there are areas of deception, used by groups, these human trafficking groups, to deceive people into making those trips. Of course, they don't. There's no full disclosure on how exactly you're going to get to Europe. But could we talk about the avenues of deception that they use? And I'm thinking here that even some of these social media ads for scholarships and schools and jobs and things like that could also be, moonlighting as legal routes for migration.
Yeah, even the current Ceuta issue that just erupted, the social media was one of the medium used to be able to convey this message amongst the young people who got themselves involved in it. I give you an example. I got a group that said today that Arada, there is a group called Arada that they are on social media. That's where a lot of these young people were being recruited and told about the plans for this Ceuta movement. And in fact, the recent information I'm hearing now is that they are planning another big visit through Ceuta. And of course, through their social media groups, they have started gathering themselves, they started giving information, all manner of things are going on. So social media is one of the ways that these young people get to bring themselves together and just start this movement. And before you know what's happening, when one says, let's go, the others are following without even having details. So I must tell you, there's so much that are still waiting in the future for us if we don't tackle this. And then there's a need at this point for governments to come together and cooperate together on this issue, because it's not the issue of border surveillance that would solve this problem. There's a lot more that we need to do to be able to solve this problem. Governments need to come together. They need to understand. They need to speak to young people, because you cannot barb a man's hair in his absence. One of the set of people that I keep telling people that is difficult to deal with is somebody who is aware that they can die going through the Mediterranean Sea, and yet they still take decision to go through that path that they've been told that they can die. Such a person, you really need to sit down with such people to listen to them, understand why they are doing what they are doing, and then begin to address the situation from hearing and listening to what the problems are. And one of such problems that keeps echoing every now and then that have gone viral is the issue of economic pressure. A lot of them just believe that their leaders, their governments are not doing enough for them. So they cannot continue to be in their state, in their country, their current country, because nothing would happen. So in their mind, they just feel that until we relocate to an European country, we will never be able to make it in life. That's a lie. But unfortunately, this is what is on the mind of a lot of our young people.
So when you say that governments should come together, when you're getting reports like this, and you're saying that governments should come together, what exactly are you expecting them, to discuss? Is it the number of people that will be allowed to leave the countries each year and enter into European countries, or what exactly are you hoping will be the outcome of such
Yes.
meetings?
One, not all governments have the same mindset. Some may be corrupt and some may be willing to do the right thing. So until you begin to speak to this government, you would not know who is approachable and who is not. So if the ones who are approachable, who are willing to solve the problem, work with them. The ones who are not willing to solve the problem, then you can they can be exposed formally. They
Yeah.
can really be exposed so that it becomes a deterrent for others. You understand? Because you cannot do irregular migration project. It cannot be done in isolation of government. different because it involves different states. These young people come from different countries, and the countries they are going into within the European countries are also different countries. So governments must come together and begin to say, what can we do? How can we empower? If there's a problem of empowerment, how can we provide opportunities if there are limited opportunities? What can we do? And that, to an extent, will be able to solve some of the problem, but not all.
I want us to talk about the question of dignity when we see these people climbing into these inflatable boats and we see them making the crossings at sea, we see them being rescued at sea. It's very difficult to think, oh, these are human beings, these are lives, these are destinies that are just sometimes, unfortunately, many of them will be returned back to the original countries that they're coming from. Do you think that Europe should be a little more sympathetic, towards these people who are coming, because they already have standing instructions, regulations, rules about how people can actually enter their country. When people make such desperate moves and they're in positions of you know where they really need help, vulnerable situations like this, what do you think should be the most humanitarian thing to do, towards these people?
Mm. You know what? Different strokes for different folks. Um, a lot, I must tell you that the European government at this point needs to use their discretion. And I do not encourage any form of unnecessary sympathy. I was in Spain last year. I was having meetings with different organizations on this matter. Those organizations happen to be the ones that's non-governmental organizations. They happen to be the ones that are helping the young people that manage to migrate to Spain. And they are trying to see how they can make them comfortable, provide housing, provide education, skills, and all of that, just to make these young people achieve the fullness of their potential. And my message to them finally played out during the Ceuta incident. I said, look, in 2022, I was here and I visited homes. And I was told in 2022 that there are about over 600 residents where our young Africans are being kept and taken care of. Over 600. Each of the residents that I visited had up to like maybe 18 or 20 in some cases of young people. I said, if you keep doing this, you are going to encourage more of our young people to die, because this is a very deadly journey that they are embarking on. And we are campaigning against them embarking on this journey and trying to see how we can look for means of providing alternatives for them to be able to at least, we can't just say stop going and not provide something else to fill in the gap. I said, but when you are on the other side, welcoming them, feeding them, providing houses for them, young people naturally would pick up their phone and call the next person in Nigeria, in Gambia, in Ethiopia. I said, look, we are enjoying our lives here. Come and join us. And they don't need to talk too much. The next thing happening in Africa is everyone wants to be where their friends are, because their friends are now telling them how good the new location is. So I kept telling them that I'm not saying that you shouldn't care for them. I'm not saying that you shouldn't show a form of humanity towards these young people. I said, but the approach is, I'm uncomfortable with this approach because it will cost us more lives. That is the repercussion of this care. My take is, I'm not trying to be mean here, Amara. Whenever I hear that these young people die, I just can't take it again. I am very, very, very disturbed. So for that reason, anything to deter them from embarking is what I see as a solution. And not when people come and you start petting them, taking care of them. I'm not saying that people should not be human, but if you have to be human for 1 day, 2 days, the next day, send them back to their country. Or immediately as they are arriving, if there are mechanism where people can get transported immediately on arrival. Give them food as you are transporting them back to their back to their country. Provide for them, help them, protect them. Whilst you are doing that, make sure that repatriation arrangement is on immediately, not next week. These are deterrents. These are the ways to deter others from dying. This is my message to them. And they were even telling me, they're surprised that you are a black woman and you're talking like this. I said, yes, because I'm seeing the bigger picture. You take care of them. Some of them, there are better ways to help them. You can create a safer pathway. There are pathways that can be created in form of scholarship, in form of job provision, as in the ones that does not lack, not these ones that lack accountability. I'm talking about job creation that governments of EU countries are involved with, so that we don't start getting these young people involved in human trafficking again. So these are the ways that I feel, based on my experience and what I have been exposed to in my years working with these irregular migrants. I feel that there has to be strong deterrent that makes them know that if you travel, you will come back the next day. You will be sent back in 2 days' time. So everybody knows that you are just wasting your time making that journey. And that would be a very strong deterrent to save the lives of our people.
Yeah, so in other words, they need to explore more legal channels to get into the countries of their dream. Olasubomi Aina, thank you so much for speaking with us, and um, do keep us informed about your work, with these humanitarian groups and with the youth in Europe. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you, Amara.
That's it on the program today. Remember, you can always catch this episode and others on the Channel CV page on YouTube. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.